Hello everyone and welcome to the chapter number 70, Character Creation, where we'll be understanding about modeling the head of our character. So far in this course, we have covered a variety of topics in Blender, like the basic modeling, then we understood about the modifiers, the node system, then we dived deep into the concepts of materials and textures in Blender, then we covered the animation part in Blender, then we also covered some additional topics like the compositing in Blender, the various types of physics and simulations, and from this chapter onwards, we'll be starting the journey of character creation. But yes, for those of you who are new to this course, you can watch the previous 70 chapters also from the link of the playlist given in the pinned comment. Now before beginning with the character modeling, we first need to understand that what exactly will be the type of character that we'll be creating. So from this particular chapter, we'll be creating this particular character where we'll be focusing on modeling the character's body, making the hair of the character, then we'll make the clothes of character. So by following all these steps, we'll be completing the creation of character model. Now to begin with modeling the head of character, we need a simple object to start with. It can either be a cube or a UV sphere or maybe a cylinder, and in this particular chapter, we'll be making the character's head with a cylinder. So first of all, press X to delete the cube. Now press Shift plus A, go to Mesh and select the cylinder. Now in the Add Cylinder menu, we have several settings to change, and the one that we'll be changing will be the vertices parameter. By default, its value is set to 32, but we need the character's head to be much more simpler. As a result, I'll change the vertices value from 32 to a value of 16. Now we have lesser vertices, and this will give the head of the character a very simple look. Now let's go to the front view by pressing 1 on the numpad, and we'll be keeping this x-axis as the base of the character. So we'll be moving the cylinder up in the z-axis by 4 meters, and that's because we'll be keeping the character's height of somewhere around 4 meters. Now let's also reduce the size of head, and right now if I select the measure tool from here, then you can see that for a height of about 4 meters, we have to keep the head of cylinder somewhere around this point. Also, we'll be keeping the length of the character's head of around 1/4 the height of character, which is approximately equal to 1 meters. But right now, the length of this cylinder, which will be used as a head, is around 2 meters. So to solve this problem, tab into the edit mode, press S to scale it down and type 0.5. Also, return back to the object mode, move the cylinder down in the z-axis by 0.5 meters. So for this, press G, then Z and enter minus 0.5. Now to make this cylinder look like the character's head, go to the edit mode, and now we'll be applying the bevel tool to the edges of the cylinder. So for this, press 2 for the edge select mode. Now left click anywhere in the screen to deselect all the edges, and now we need to select only the top edge loop and the bottom edge loop. So for this, with the Alt key holded, left click on the top edge loop, and similarly with the Alt and the Shift key holded, select the bottom edge loop. Let's go back to the front view, and to apply the bevel tool, press Ctrl plus B. This will help us to form the basic structure of the character's head. Also, to improve the number of segments, you can use the scroll wheel. So if I scroll up, the number of segments in the bevel will increase, and once you have finalized, simply click the left mouse button. Also, to make the head of character slightly thinner, press A to select everything, and we need to scale it down in the X and Y axis simultaneously. So for this, press S and press Shift plus Z. Now let's scale it down like this, and left click to finalize. Now one of the most important things while modeling anything is to take care of the fact that each face of the geometry should be made from 4 vertices as far as possible. But in this case, you can see that the top face as well as the bottom are made up of more than 4 vertices. And to solve this problem, simply go to the face select mode by pressing 3. Now select the top face, press X to delete and select delete faces. And now we need to fill this face such that all the faces in the geometry will have exact 4 vertices. So for this, press 2 for the edge select mode. Now with the Alt key holded, select this edge loop at the top. Now if I press Ctrl plus F, then it will show the menu for the face settings like the extrude faces, inset faces, filling the faces, and for this particular case, we'll be selecting the grid fill. This will help to fill the empty space in between the selected vertices by adding multiple faces in the grid form. Also, if I go to the top view by pressing 7 on the numpad, then here we need to ensure that the pattern of these grid faces should be such that the vertices of these faces should be aligned with the X and the Y axis. But in this case, we are not having that alignment. And to solve this problem, in the grid fill settings over here, you can try to change the offset value, and by doing this, we'll reach a result where these vertices or the edges are properly aligned with both the X and the Y axis. Now let's do the same with this bottom face also. So for this, press 3 for the face select mode. Now select the bottom face, press X to delete and select delete faces. Now press 2 for the edge select mode, and with the Alt key holded, select this edge loop. Now press Ctrl plus F for the face menu and select the grid fill. Now for the bottom view, press Ctrl plus 7, and to align the vertices and the edges with the X and Y axis, go to the grid fill settings and change the offset from here. And at the offset value of 2, I'm getting the desired results. Now with this, we have the basic structure of the head ready in our scene. Now moving ahead, if I go to the side view, then we need to make the face slightly more upwards from this right side. And for this, press Alt plus Z to turn on the X-ray mode. Now press 1 for the vertex select mode and select these bottom edges. Now first of all, press S and Z and slightly scale it down in the Z axis. Now press R to rotate it like this and left click to finalize. Also press G to move it in the Y axis and move it slightly towards the right. Also if you want, you can rotate it even more by pressing R, so it completely depends upon you that how much angle you want to keep for the head of character. Now moving ahead, we'll be creating the mouth of our character. So for this, let's first add some loop cuts in order to increase the number of vertices. So press Ctrl plus R, then left click and drag it down like this. Let's add one more loop cut below the first one. So press Ctrl plus R again and let's add a loop cut over here. Now left click to finalize and right click to cancel the movement. For a better geometry, let's add one more loop cut over here. So press Ctrl plus R, then left click to finalize and right click to cancel the movement. Now let's go back to the front view by pressing 1 on the numpad. Press Alt plus Z to turn off the X-ray mode. Now for creating the mouth, we'll be selecting some faces on this lower side and will then insert the faces. So for this, press 3 to enable the face select mode, and now we'll be selecting these 8 vertices over here. Now to insert them, press I and then left click to finalize. Now to create a hollow space for the mouth part, press X and select delete faces. Now moving ahead, in order to ensure a proper symmetry of the face on both the sides, it's advisable to use the mirror modifier. So for this, first enable the X-ray mode by pressing Alt plus Z. Now select the second half of faces, press X and select delete faces. Let's turn off the X-ray mode, and with this half, go to the modify properties, click on add modifier, and in the generate, select the mirror modifier. Now whatever changes I'll do on this right hand side to any of the vertices, edges or the faces will automatically get applied to the other symmetrical side. For example, if I select this face and press G to move it, then you can see here that the same effect is being applied to the other side of the face as well. However, if I press 1 for the vertex select mode and select a vertex anywhere in the middle and try to move it, then now you will notice that the middle vertices of both sides of the symmetry are not connected to each other. And to connect them together, simply go to the mirror modifier and turn on the clipping. And with this, if I again try to move this vertex by pressing G, then the geometry is no longer getting ripped apart. Now let's go to the front view, and now let's place these vertices around the mouth properly for the character. So for this, I'll select this top vertex, let's slightly move it down in the Z axis, let's select this one also and move it up in the Z axis like this. In this way, we'll reduce the hollow space that we have created for the mouth. Now select this vertex over here, press G to move it and place it over here. Now I'll select this one, let's move it slightly upwards. Now I'll select this vertex, let's move it over here. Similarly with this one, let's place it over here, and now this particular vertex, we'll place it over here. Now let's zoom in, and you need to ensure that the space between the top and the bottom vertices is almost equal for all these vertices around the mouth. So let's properly fix this. So first of all, let's move the selected vertex slightly upwards in the Z axis like this. Let's select this one and move it slightly downwards in the Z axis. Let's also select this one and move it slightly in the X axis like this, and now it looks perfect. Also, let's go to the side view by pressing 3 on the numpad. Now over here, we'll be selecting this vertex and press G to move it in the Y axis. Then I'll also select this one and let's move it over here. Let's also move this particular vertex slightly upwards in the Z axis. Let's also move this one slightly upwards in the Z axis. And guess it depends on your model and the placement of different vertices that what changes you should do here. In simple words, you need to ensure that all of these vertices of the mouth are kind of symmetrical on both the top as well as the bottom. Also, I'll select this vertex which is not connected to the mouth and will slightly move it in the Y axis. The reason for doing this is that when the mouth of the character will move, it will also show the stretching effect. As a result, we had to move this vertex slightly apart in order to increase the area around the mouth for stretching. Also, for a better geometry, we'll be adding a loop cut over here. So press Ctrl plus R, then left click to finalize and right click to cancel the movement. Now it's completely up to you if you want to change the position of any vertices, and the effect of these changes will basically be visible when we work on the facial expressions. So if you want, you can try to move some of these vertices as per your own choice. But for now, I think that the mouth area looks almost perfect. And now moving ahead, we'll be creating a nose for our character. So for this, let's first go back to the object mode, and now to make a simple cartoon-like nose for this character, which will be kind of circular, you can add a UV sphere on an icosphere, but in this chapter, I'll be using a cube and will apply subdivision surface modifier to it. So press Shift plus A, go to mesh and select the cube. Now go to the modifier properties, click on add modifier, and in the generate, select the subdivision surface modifier. Now with the levels viewport set to 1, let's apply this modifier. So click on this drop down and select apply. Now go to the side view by pressing 3 on the numpad, tab into the edit mode, press S to scale it down like this. Now let's return back to the object mode, press G to move it and place it over here. Now let's zoom in, and we still need to make it smaller in size. So tab into the edit mode, press S to scale it down again, and now it looks perfect. Also, let's return back to the object mode, press G to move the nose, and let's move it in the y-axis and place it over here. Now moving ahead, let's also model the eyes of the character, and for this we'll be using the same cube with the subdivision surface applied. So for this, press Shift plus D to create a duplicate and place it over here. Now tab into the edit mode, and instead of round, we'll be making it slightly oval. So for this, press S to scale it up in the Z-axis. Now left click to finalize. Now let's go to the side view, get back to the object mode, let's move it in the y-axis and place it over here. Also, let's slightly scale it down in the y-axis in order to make it thinner, and now it looks perfect. Now to get a better view of the eyes position, let's go to the top view by pressing 7 on the numpad, tab into the edit mode. Now with all the vertices selected, let's rotate it in the Z-axis like this. Now come out of the edit mode, press C to move it and place it over here. Now let's go to the front view again, and once this eye is ready, we'll now be creating the eyebrows of the character. So for this, press Shift plus A, go to mesh and select the cube, tab into the edit mode, press S to scale it down, let's zoom in, come out of the edit mode, and let's place it over here. Also, go to the side view by pressing 3 on the numpad, and let's move it forward in the y-axis. Now to convert it into an eyebrow, we need to do some changes in the geometry of this cube. So tab into the edit mode, let's scale it down in the Z-axis in order to reduce its height. Also, let's scale it down in the y-axis in order to reduce the depth. Now let's go to the front view in order to see it properly. Now let's come out of the edit mode and move it down in the Z-axis. I think that we should reduce the size in the X-axis also. So tab into the edit mode again and scale it down in the X-axis like this. Now to align the eyebrow properly with the face, go to the top view by pressing 7 on the numpad, press R and Z to rotate it in the Z-axis. Now come out of the edit mode and move it over here. And now this is how the simple eyebrow of the character is looking. In order to make it curved, tab into the edit mode, and now we need to add some loop cuts in order to make the eyebrow curved. So press Ctrl plus R, and to increase the number of loop cuts, you can use the scroll wheel. So let's keep around 3 loop cuts, then left click to finalize and right click to cancel the movement. Now turn on the proportional editing tool by pressing O, and now we'll move the selected vertices upwards in the Z-axis. So for this, press G, and since the proportional editing tool is turned on, as a result, if I try to move these vertices, the effect will also be seen on the neighboring vertices. And to solve this problem, we need to reduce the size of the circle of influence of proportional editing tool. And for this, after pressing the G key, simply scroll up, and this will reduce the size of the circle of influence. Let's keep the size to something like this, so that when we move up the selected vertices in the Z-axis, the surrounding vertices will also show some movement. Now left click to finalize. Now while being in the edit mode, press A to select everything, O to turn off the proportional editing, and let's move it down again in the Z-axis like this. And now we have the curved eyebrows in the scene. Now let's return back to the object mode, and now the next thing that we're gonna do is to complete this other side of the face as well. And for this, we'll be joining the nose, eyes, the eyebrows, and the head together as a single object. But before that, let's also make this nose cut into half so that we can properly join it with the remaining parts of the face, and then apply the mirror modifier. So let's tab into the edit mode, press Alt plus Z to turn on the X-ray mode. Now select this half of vertices, press X to delete, and select delete faces. Now let's come out of the edit mode, press Alt plus Z to turn off the X-ray mode, and with this nose selected, hold the shift button, then select this eye, then with the shift key still hold it, select this eyebrow, and in the end select the head. Now to join them together, press Ctrl plus J, and now because of the mirror modifier, we are having the nose, eyes, and the eyebrows on both the sides of the face. And now one thing that you might have noticed is that currently the face of our character is looking somewhat like a robot, and that is because we are not having enough vertices to give it a human-like look. And to solve this problem, we'll be applying the subdivision surface modifier to it. So with the head selected, go to the modify properties, click on add modifier, and in the generate, select the subdivision surface modifier. And with this, the face is now looking much more realistic than before. Similarly, if I go to the subdivision surface modifier and increase the levels viewport to a value of 2, then the character will look much better. But for now, I will be keeping the levels viewport value to 1. Also, I think that we should try to increase the thickness of the eyebrows. So for this, tab into the edit mode, let's go to the front view by pressing 1 on the numpad, and to select only the eyebrows, one of the ways is to select the eyebrows like this. But in this method, you might exclude some of the vertices or include some vertices of the surrounding objects. So a better way to do this is to first deselect everything by left clicking in the 3D viewport. Now with my cursor over the eyebrow, press L, and now you can see here that we have all the vertices of the eyebrow selected. Now let's scale it up in the Z-axis like this. Also, let's go to the side view by pressing 3 on the numpad, and let's scale it up in the Y-axis. Also, if I zoom in, then you can see here that because of the subdivision effect, the distance between the nose and the face has slightly increased. And to bring it closer, first ensure that nothing is selected, then take the cursor over the nose, press L, and now let's move it in the y-axis. Let's place it over here and left click to finalize. And now moving ahead, we'll now be creating the ears of the character. So for this, we'll be adding a cube in the scene. So press Shift plus A, go to mesh and select a cube. Let's move it and place it over here. Now tab into the edit mode, press S to scale it down and left click to finalize. Now come out of the edit mode, press G to move it and place it over here. Now let's return back to the edit mode and let's slightly scale it down. Now let's go to the side view. Let's scale it down in the y-axis also, and now it looks perfect. Now to make its shape look more like an ear, we need to add some loop cuts. So press Ctrl plus R and add one loop cut over here. Then press Ctrl plus R again and add another loop cut over here. Now turn on the X-ray mode and select these vertices. Let's scale them up in the Z-axis slightly. Then I'll select this vertex and with the Shift key holded, select this one and we'll be moving them slightly inwards. So press G and move them in like this. Let's also scale them down in the Z-axis and now it looks perfect. Now let's turn off the X-ray mode, press 3 for the face select mode, and now we'll be selecting these 4 faces of the ear. Press I to insert, then left click to finalize, and to create the hollow space, we'll be extruding in these faces. So press E to extrude it inwards and left click to finalize. Let's also scale them slightly downwards by pressing S and left click to finalize. Now let's go to the top view by pressing 7 on the numpad, press A to select everything, and let's slightly rotate them in the Z axis. Now left click to finalize, and now moving ahead, we'll be joining this ear with the head of the character. So return back to the object mode and with the ear selected, hold on the Shift key and select the head. Now press Ctrl plus J, and with this, we'll observe two changes. One is the mirroring, which is due to the mirror modifier, and the second effect is the application of the subdivision modifier. Now moving ahead, if I go to the mirror modifier and click on this third icon, then now we'll be able to see only the original right half of the head. And if I change the angle, then you can clearly see that our mesh is not having any kind of thickness. Currently it looks thin as a paper, and to give it some thickness, we'll be adding the solidify modifier. So go to the modify properties, click on add modifier, and in the generate, select the solidify modifier. Also, to ensure that you move the solidify modifier up in the order before the subdivision surface modifier. And to do this, left click over here and drag the solidify modifier above the subdivision surface modifier. Now in the thickness value, keep it to somewhere around 0.01 or 0.02, and this will give a slightly thick look to the mesh of head. Now moving ahead, let's work on creating the interior part of the mouth. So for this, we'll basically be making a curved object to be placed in here, and for this, we'll be adding a cube in the scene. So press Shift plus A, go to mesh and select the cube. Now go to the modify properties, click on add modifier, and in the generate, select the subdivision surface modifier. With the levels viewport set to 1, we'll be applying this modifier from here. Now let's go to the side view by pressing 3 on the numpad. Now press G, Z and move it up in the Z axis. Now go to the wireframe display mode, and to modify this cube, tab into the edit mode, press S to scale it down and left click to finalize. Now we have to ensure that the position of this object which we'll be using for the interior of mouth must be placed somewhere at this position. So for this, come out of the edit mode, press G to move it and place it over here. Now tab into the edit mode again, press 1 for the vertex select mode, select everything by pressing A and let's scale it down again. Now left click to finalize. Now let's go to the front view and we'll be deleting this left half of the object. So for this, I'll select these vertices, press X to delete and select delete faces. Also, let's return back to the object mode, press 3 to go to the side view, or maybe let's press Ctrl plus 3 to view the other side. Now press Alt plus Z to turn on the X-ray mode, and now we'll also be deleting these vertices that are coming out of the face. So press X and select delete vertices. Now we'll be selecting this front edge loop of this object, so hold on the Alt button and left click. Now press E to extrude it in the y-axis, then left click to finalize. Let's also go to the side view in order to see everything properly. So press Ctrl plus 3, and I think that we should move all the vertices slightly backwards. So press A to select everything and let's move it in the y-axis. Also, let's slightly scale it up in the y-axis like this and left click to finalize. Now select this vertex over here, and also with the Shift key holded, select this vertex and let's move them forward in the y-axis. Now left click to finalize, and with this, we now have the interior of the mouth almost ready for our character. Now let's return back to the object mode, and just like the other body parts, we'll also be connecting this interior of the mouth with the face of character. So for this, with the mouth interior selected, hold on the Shift button and select the face, and to join them together, press Ctrl plus J. And because of this, we now have both the solidify as well as the subdivision surface modifier applied to the entire face along with the mouth interior. Also, to view the effect of the mirror modifier again, you simply need to turn on the real-time display by clicking on this icon. Now before moving ahead, in the solidify modifier, to ensure that you have turned on the only rim option, the benefit of enabling this is that now the solidify modifier will affect only the open edges of the model, and as a result, it won't add any thickness or the solidify effect to those areas which don't have an open edge. So it's better to keep this option on. Now moving ahead, we'll now be creating the teeth for our character, and for this, we'll be adding a cylinder in our scene. So press Shift plus A, go to mesh and select the cylinder. Now in the add cylinder cylinder menu, change the number of vertices to 16. Now tab into the edit mode, and with all the vertices selected, let's scale it down in the z-axis. Now to model the teeth, we'll be using these front faces and we'll extrude them in order to give them some thickness. So first of all, press 3 for the face select mode, select the top face, and with the shift key holded, select this bottom face. Now press X to delete and select delete faces. Now as I told you earlier, we only need these front faces, and therefore I'll go to the top view by pressing 7 on the numpad, press 1 for the vertex select mode, then press Alt plus Z to turn on the X-ray mode, and we'll be selecting all these vertices. Now press X to delete and select delete faces, and with this we have only the front faces of the cylinder in our scene. Let's also turn off the X-ray mode, press A to select everything, and to reduce its width, let's slightly scale it down in the y-axis. So press S, Y and scale it down like this. And now to add some thickness to these faces, press 3 for the face select mode, and now we'll be extruding these faces along the normals. So for this, press Alt plus E and select extrude faces along normals. Now if I move my cursor, then the faces will get extruded, and to finalize the extrusion, simply click the left mouse button. Now we'll be using this teeth part for the upper teeth that will get attached to the upper jaw. As a result, we don't need to have all these faces on the top and also on the sides. So to delete them, first I'll select this face, then with the control key holded, select this last face. Also with the shift key holded, select this face, and similarly select this face also. Now press X to delete and select delete faces, and with this we have all the selected faces deleted. Also to give it a realistic look, let's return back to the object mode, and now we'll be using the subdivision surface modifier. So go to the modifier properties, click on add modifier, and in the generate, select the subdivision surface modifier. Also let's tab into the edit mode, press A to select everything, and let's scale this up, and I'll scale it up in the z-axis. Also to make this lower part slightly less rounded, let's add a loop cut over here. So press Ctrl plus R, then left click and move it down, and with this we now have the teeth ready for our scene. And so now it's the time to place the teeth inside the mouth of character, and to do this, let's first select the head of character, and I'll disable the real-time display of the mirror modifier. Let's go to the side view by pressing Ctrl and 3 on the numpad. Now select the teeth, press G to move it and place it over here. Now tap into the edit mode, press A to select everything and scale it down, and then left click to finalize. Now go to the front view, press Alt plus Z to turn on the X-ray mode, and let's scale this down in the X-axis. Also let's go back to the side view, let's also scale it down in the Z-axis slightly, turn off the X-ray mode, and let's also return back to the object mode. Now to move the teeth, press G and move it over here. Let's go to the front view also, so press 1 on the numpad, let's move them slightly upwards in the Z-axis and place them over here. Similarly for the lower teeth, press Shift plus D to create a duplicate, then right click to cancel the movement. Let's move it down in the Z-axis and place it over here. But if I change the angle, then you can see here that for the lower teeth also, we have the hollow space on the top and the filled faces on the bottom part. But to get the reverse result, we need to rotate this object in the y-axis by 180 degrees. So press R, Y and enter 180. Let's go back to the front view and move it down in the z-axis. Now left click to finalize. Also let's go to the side view, tab into the edit mode, and let's slightly scale it down so that the upper teeth have a slightly higher size as compared to the lower teeth. Also I will be joining both the upper teeth as well as the lower teeth together. So for this, with the lower teeth selected, hold on the shift key and select the upper teeth. Now press Ctrl plus J to join them together, and with this the teeth are now completely ready. Also I'll change their name in the scene collection. So instead of cylinder.001, I'll double click and change its name to teeth. Similarly for the head also, I'll select it, go to the scene collection, double click to rename and change its name to head. Let's also go to the mirror modifier and turn on the real-time display, and with this we have the basic structure of the head along with the teeth ready in our scene. Also let's go back to the front view. With the head selected, tab into the edit mode, deselect everything, press 1 for the vertex select mode, and I'm planning to make the lower part of the face slightly scaled down. So for this, let's select this edge loop. So with the Alt key holded, select the edge loop, and to increase the selection, we'll be using the shortcut to press Ctrl with the plus button. Also turn on the proportional editing tool to get better results. Now press S and X and slightly scale it down. Let's reduce the circle of influence and left click to finalize. Before moving ahead, I can also notice that this interior part of the mouth is intersecting with the teeth. So let's turn off the real-time display. In the mirror modifier, let's change the angle, and now we need to select this interior part of the mouth and move it slightly backwards in the y-axis. So for this, let's first deselect everything. Now I'll take my cursor over the mouth interior part, then press L. Let's also turn off the proportional editing, and let's move it back in the y-axis. Then left click to finalize, and with this we have the head of our character completely ready. And now moving ahead, we'll be creating the hair for our character. For this, tab into the edit mode, and now we need to select all those faces where the hair will be added. So for this, first of all, I will be selecting these top faces. So let's select all of these. Then to increase the selection, press Ctrl and the numpad plus. Let's do this one more time. Now we have some of the faces selected. Also, let's deselect all these faces on the bottom which might have been accidentally selected. So for this, hold on the Ctrl button and select all these faces. Also, let's select these side faces. So with the shift key hold it, select all these faces. Now let's change the angle, select these faces at the back, and I think that these will be the faces where we'll be adding the hair particles. So now I'll press 1 for the vertex select mode, and we need to increase these vertices in order to create the hair particles. So right click and select subdivide, and we need to repeat this step 3 to 4 times. So let's do it one more time, and now we have a high number of vertices added on these faces. Also, let's assign all these vertices to a vertex group. So for this, let's go to the object data properties. Then to create a new vertex group, click on this plus button, and to change its name, double click here, and we'll rename the vertex group to hair. Now to assign these vertices to the hair vertex group, click on the assign button, and now we are ready to create the hair. So let's come out of the edit mode, and now we'll be opening the particle properties. To create a new particle system, click on the plus button and change the particle type to hair. Now we have the hair particles added all over the character's face on this left hand side. However, to get the hair particles only on the vertex group that we selected, go to the vertex group settings, and in the density, select the hair vertex group. Also, it's advisable to select the hair vertex group for all of these parameters. So let's do the same with the fourth one, then with the roughness 1 parameter, similarly the roughness 2 parameter, the roughness n parameter, and at last I'll do the same with the twist parameter. Now first of all, let's increase the number of hair particles. So let's change the number to something like 3000. Then to reduce their length, let's go to the hair length and change it to something like 0.1 meters or maybe 0.08 meters. Now in the segments, we have to input a very high number in order to give a realistic look to the hair. So in the segments, I'll be entering a value of 20, then go to the source settings, and in the emit from, select vertices. This will make the hair particles emit from the vertices that we have selected rather than the faces. Also in the render settings, scroll down, and in the path category, increase the number of steps to something like 8. This will again give a much more realistic look to the hair particles. Similarly, in the viewport display, change the strand steps to 7 or 8, and now we have the most important setting, which is the children settings. Also, before moving forward, if you don't know anything about the hair particles, then I'll first advise you to watch this particular chapter where we understood about the hair particles in complete detail. Now returning back to the concept, in the children, select the simple type and change the display amount and the render amount both to a value of 8. Also, let's reduce the radius value to something like 0.1, and now we have the setting called the clumping that will completely change the way how the hair particles are looking. So first of all, let's add some clumping to the hair by changing this value to 1. Also, let's increase the value of the shape of clumping to a maximum of 1. And now the next parameter that we have is the most important one, and this is the twist parameter. This value will control the number of turns around the parent hair along the strand. To understand it in a better way, let's try to increase the twist value. So let's change it to something like 2, and now you will begin to notice that the hair of character is actually looking better. It has this twisting effect in the hair particles, which is due to the twist parameter. Let's further increase this value of the twist parameter to something like 4 or 5, or maybe let's keep it to 6, and now the hair particles look perfect. We have created realistic looking hair particles with the help of the hair particles in Blender. Also, if you want, you can try to change the values of parameters like the number of hair particles or the hair length or maybe the amount of clumping or the twisting effect according to what you think will look the best for your character. But for now, I'll be going with only this particle system. Also, one more thing that you can see here is that we have the hair particles only on this one side of the character's head, and this is because we have not yet applied the mirror modifier. So if I click on this drop down and apply, then you will notice that we now have the hair particles added on both the sides. But it might be possible that we may want to edit something in the mirror modifier, and therefore we'll not be applying it right now. So let's undo this by pressing Ctrl plus Z, and now we have the mirror modifier back in the modifier properties. Also, one more thing that you can see here is that some of the hair particles are covering the ears of character, and to solve this problem, let's go to the side view by pressing 3 on the numpad, tab into the edit mode, and now we'll be selecting all those vertices that are around the character's ear. For this, let's first turn on the X-ray mode, and now we'll be selecting all these vertices over here. With these selected, go to the object data properties, and with the hair vertex group selected, click on the remove button. Now this will remove all the vertices that were previously the part of the vertex group but are now selected over here. So let's return back to the object mode. Let's also turn off the X-ray mode, and now you can see here that we have slightly lesser number of hair particles around the ear. To reduce the number further, let's again go to the side view, tab into the edit mode, and let's try to increase the selection by pressing Ctrl and the plus icon in the numpad. Let's repeat this step one more time, and now again I click on on the remove button. Let's return back to the object mode, and now this is how the result is looking. We are only having a few hair particles in front of the ear, and this is because we still have not selected these vertices over here. So if you want to reduce the number of hair particles further, you can press Ctrl and the plus icon again and click on the remove button. But for now, I won't be doing this step because I think the character's hair is looking better in this case. Also, one more thing that I should explain you in the edit mode is that you might be thinking that while removing the vertices, we have selected all these unwanted vertices which are not related to the hair particles. But as I told you before, when you are removing the vertices in a vertex group, it will not consider these vertices which were already not part of the vertex group. It will only consider those selected vertices that were already there in the vertex group. Now let's return back to the object mode again, and with this, we now have the head of the character ready. And now before ending this chapter, we'll also be creating some materials for the character's head. So first of all, let's right click and apply shade smooth. And now to create the material, let's go to the material properties. Let's also go to the material preview mode, and now we'll be creating the material for the skin. So in the material properties, let's create a new material, and for the base color, we'll be selecting the skin color. And for this, we'll be using the HEX code of skin color, which is E7AE80. So let's go to the HEX code and we'll type E7AE80 and press enter to confirm. Now we have the skin color applied to the entire head along with the hair particles. So we'll be assigning different material for the hair, the eyebrows and the eyes of character. But for now, let's first work on the skin material. So let's also increase the roughness value slightly. So we'll keep it to something around 0.6 or 0.7. Then go to the sheen category, and in the weight, let's increase it to 1. Let's also increase the roughness value to something like 0.6 or 0.7. Who don't know the usage of sheen in the material properties, it is simply subsurface scattering, which simulates the way light interacts with translucent objects like skin, wax, marble. So in simple words, it helps to create a soft or a glowing effect beneath the surface of material, giving it a much more realistic appearance. Now since we are making the skin color, so in the sheen tint, we'll change it to something like orange or red. And so with this, the material for the skin is completely ready. Now moving ahead, we'll be creating the material for the hair particles. And for this, let's create a new material. And in this one, we'll simply change the base color to something like black or dark blue. So let's reduce the brightness from here. And to apply this material, go to the particle settings, and in the render category, change the material to the material.001, and by doing this, the color and the material of the hair particles will now change. Let's go to the material properties again, and we'll rename the material.001 to hair. Similarly, let's also change the first material's name to skin. Now in this hair material, it's completely up to you if you want complete black color or slightly grayish. Also, you can also make it slightly dark blue or any other color of your choice by changing the color from here. You can also keep the hair dark brown colored, but for now, I will be choosing the dark blue color and will further reduce the brightness. And yes, if you want to apply the same color for the hair of your character also, then you can enter this HEX code value, which is 121327 in your base color. Now moving ahead, let's also create the material for the eyebrows and the eyes. And for this, let's first go to the front view by pressing 1 on the numpad, tab into the edit mode. Let's zoom in. Now deselect everything, and before applying the colors, let's also do a few things in order to make our character appear much better. So first of all, with everything deselected, I'll take my cursor over the eye and press L. Now I'll scale it down slightly. Also, I will select this outer edge loop, and for this, I'll first select this vertex, then press Ctrl and the plus icon to increase the selection, and let's scale it down like this. Now we'll be using the faces of all these selected vertices in order to give the eyes the black color. So for this, let's go to the material properties, click on the plus icon and create a new material. Let's change the base color, and we'll be assigning the black color. Now to apply this material on the selected faces, click on the assign button. Let's also move these faces slightly in the x-axis. Also, for the white color of the eye, let's first deselect everything, then with my cursor over the eye, I'll press L, and now I will deselect this middle vertex, and now we'll be applying a white colored material to the rest of the faces. So for this, go to the material properties, click on the plus button and create a new material. It will have the white base color, and to assign this material, we'll click on the assign button. And with this, we now have a perfect material created for the eyes. Now moving to the eyebrows, press L to select them. Let's also move them down in the z-axis. Let's also slightly scale it up in the x-axis, and now it looks perfect. Now I'll go to the material properties, select this black material and click on the assign button. And with this, we have now applied all the materials for the character's head. Let's do one more thing in the edit mode. First deselect everything, then I'll select this edge loop around the mouth and I'll scale it down in the x-axis. Let's come out of the edit mode, and to get a final look, let's go to the modify properties, then click here and select apply. And so finally, this is how the character's head is looking. And so with this, we now arrive to the end of this chapter. Today we created a simple character's head, then we also created realistic looking hair particles, the eyes of character, the eyebrows, the nose, the mouth interior, interior and the teeth, and also applied the material to all these. But yes, before ending this chapter, I'll press Ctrl+Z in order to undo the applying of the mirror modifier, because as I told you before, it might be possible that we would need to make some changes in the character's head, and in that case, the unapplied mirror modifier will be a useful thing. And so our next chapter will be the chapter number 71, Character Creation, Modeling the Body of Character. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel, press that notification bell so that you can get timely updates about the upcoming chapters. Thank you for watching and we'll see you in the next one.